Take the exit. Turn right into the drive-thru.
Nope, I'm making dinner tonight.
You don't have time. Josh has practice.
Oh, that's right. I'll just get a salad.
And fries?
No, just the salad.
But salad cancels fries.
Salad only.
Fries.
Salad.
Fries.
Food noise isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. The affordable GLP-1 source that puts you on the road to successful weight loss.
Hey, can I get the...
Fries.
Salad. Sorry.
Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
What is going on, everybody? We are joined today by Erik Jensen. I am really excited to talk to you, and we've been scheduling back and forth, and I dropped the ball once, which sucked, but we're here. We get to talk about this. Before we get into talking about your career and everything, why don't you tell everybody what you're doing with your comic books right now?
Yeah, it's cool. You know, I got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer just at the end of making a movie a couple of years ago. And it was pretty touch and go there for a minute. My family was very concerned. I was concerned. And I ended up going to a place called Memorial Sloan Kettering, and they saved my life. And, I went into no evidence of disease. Things are good so far. But not only did they save my life, they saved the lives of children every day. So what I'm doing is during my time that I was sick, I was acting a little bit and I was writing a lot, but I needed something else to do that was physical. So I decided to go through my 3,000 comic books and see which ones were worth boarding and bagging and which ones were worth slabbing, and put them all together with my associate James. And we spent a bit of cash getting them all slabbed. But now they're up about 1,200 of them all together, and then there's some runs of them too that are pretty cool for all ages. I've gotten a bunch of 9.8s, a bunch of 8.5s, a bunch of 7.0s for people who are just getting into collecting for the first time. And a portion of the proceeds from the sales of these comics will be going to Memorial Sloan Kettering's Children's Cancer Center, because fighting villains is cool, but nothing beats fighting childhood cancer.
100%. That's amazing. Now, my mom went through cancer a few years ago, and she's on the other side of it positively, but
that's good.
It's good tough, and it's good that you turn that negative into something positive.
Right on. Yeah. It's like really, I went by the Children's Center like last week. We just stumbled in there actually, almost by accident, but it was sort of planned. And the guy walked me down the hallway and he's like, "Oh, you're the guy who's doing that." And I was like, yeah. He's like, "You're so cool." So I got some cool points for helping out kids at Memorial Sloan Kettering. I'll take that.
For sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How long have you collected comics?
Say again?
How long have you collected comic books?
Well, I've collected comic books for a long time. I've actually written comic books for a little while too. My first job in New York as a cartoonist was at High Times magazine, as a staff cartoonist for a couple of comic books they did and for some other stuff. And then I was making cartoons for a hemp hat company, which was a lot of fun. My uncles all taught me to draw. I don't expect they thought I would be making drawings for High Times magazine, but I've been into comic books since I was like probably 9, 10, 11, 12. I was an early fan of Jack Kirby's stuff. His stuff showed up on the spinner rack and like really blew my mind right around 1972. So I don't know. I was seeing Fourth World stuff, I guess, early on. Pretty quickly there. So that was a pretty cool time to discover Kirby.
Do you have a particular, like for me, I was into comic books casually, but then the Death of Superman came out and that's when it got me hooked. Do you have like one or two that you can remember that was what really pulled you in? Like, I want to keep these and collect these.
Yeah, it was weird. It was a weird one. It was a Charlton comic. I don't know if I'm a little older than you guys, but there used to be a company called Charlton, and there was a character, and I'm not sure who he's created by, called the Phantom. Billy somebody made a movie about the Phantom many years ago. Billy Zane.
I saw that in theaters.
Yeah. And I quite liked the Phantom as a character. I thought it was pretty cool, and I thought they did a pretty pretty good interpretation of the Phantom. I liked it. I thought it was very entertaining, sort of a superhero meets Indiana Jones type character, like world needs more of that. So I super got into the Phantom, but then I really, really got into Chris Claremont's run on the X-Men right around age 12. And got into a lot of the stuff that they were pulling off at Marvel in terms of at DC, and rather in terms of the Teen Titans. Teen Titans versus X-Men. That one shot issue they did was my holy grail, and I held on to those for 40 years, and now it's time to give them up to a greater cause.
Yeah, that's incredible. And being a big comic book fan, were you pretty stoked to get into The Walking Dead? Had you been reading the comics for The Walking Dead prior to kind of jumping in the show?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was a big Walking Dead comic book fan before I was even into the show. I actually had watched seasons 1 and 2, and I had to catch up. I had a lot of zombies to see before I caught up to where my storyline would eventually end up. Because I was an avid comic book reader, and when I found out who I was going to be playing, I was like, oh yeah, there's a guy like him in the comics. I think the names are swapped. I think he's Edward Stevens and not Stephen Edwards, but yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Like playing a doctor on a zombie show, like you can't beat that. Especially a doctor who loves blues music, They were like, do you know who Junior Kimbrough is? And I was like, do I know who Junior Kimbrough is? Like, it's like they wrote it for me.
Let me show you my mandolin. I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And then of course, I ended up becoming quite good friends with Scott Gimple, the showrunner, who was instrumental in helping get a GoFundMe going for me when I was really sick there. Mm. So he brought the whole Walking Dead community together for me. So my wife and I could actually work, so we could pay for our insurance and hire my cousin Scott to come and be our nurse. Because I was going through some pretty big surgeries and stuff like that, and I could not follow through on any of my home duties or family duties. So Scott came in and took over.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
And it was great of the community. I'll be forever grateful to lots of people I will never have the pleasure of meeting.
Yeah. What was it like working on the show? Sorry, forgive me, Jason.
Oh, it was great. I mean, it's sort of like cracking into a vault. You're like let in through this secret room, and you're part of this secret society, and you're all keeping a secret. And at the same time, it's a club that's been together for a long time, and you're as a guy who's just coming in for 3 episodes, I know I'm there to fulfill a role. And if I get invited into the club, great. And if I don't, that's okay too. It's their club. I'm just coming to play for a little while. And I really did get invited in a lot of great ways. Everybody's real nice to me. I made a lot of good friends on there, especially with Emily Kinney, who actually played Beth. She was very forgiving because my character was more or less responsible for her character getting killed. So, considering that circumstances, the fact that we're still friendly is nice.
That's awesome. What made you want to get into acting?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Mostly it was something that I started doing with my parents, but I got to tell you, I mean, maybe it's a cliche or whatever, but I wanted to be a Jedi. I saw that first Star Wars movie, episode 4, A New Hope. And it just blew me out of the water. I didn't care. One day I wanted to be Chewbacca. One day I wanted to be Han Solo, Luke Skywalker. I would have settled for Princess Leia. I really wanted to be part of that universe and to feel what that was like, because that's the first movie that I saw that ever made me feel like I did when I read a comic book. So like those movies, other weirder movies like Mel Brooks movies too made me want to be an actor. Blazing Saddles, Pink Panther movies, the Pink Panther films really made me want to be an actor. Dr. Strangelove, like stuff like that, I really liked science fiction as a whole, and I really loved being in there was the first Star Trek movie that came out with V'ger. That first Star Trek film, I really liked that film, and I thought it was great. And then there was another film about Baron Munchausen that came out that one of the Pythons did, which I thought was really good. Just lush universes that have a lot of imagination. Harry Harryhausen's work and Clash of the Titans, like all that stop motion stuff, made me want to be an actor. Yeah, so.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Star Trek: The Motion Picture. That movie I think it's brilliant. I didn't like it as a child. I thought it was kind of boring, but watching it now as an adult, like it's a really good movie. Like it is really good.
Yeah.
Go back and revisit because it's solid.
Yeah, it's a good film. You can't get wrong with something that uses like the Voyager probe and turns it into a super intelligence. I mean, maybe that's where we're headed now, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
No, please. Finish that.
But then over the years, I had a dream my whole life since I was 12 to draw my own comic book, and my drawing, because I was acting and writing and directing, the drawing I couldn't keep up with as much as I wanted to, but I ran into this great artist named Shep Hendricks and these guys who had this great idea for a comic series, and we co-created something called The Reconcilers, and so that's this graphic novel here.
Oh, that's fun.
Which is the covers by Neil Adams, the late great Neil Adams, my friend, who walked me through and helped me edit a good chunk of this book. And we got great reviews from Ain't It Cool News. We got great reviews from Jeanette Kahn, who ran DC Comics for 25 years. We got great reviews from Michael Taylor, who wrote Battlestar Galactica, Razor. Just a lot of good people in the media coming out and saying the comic book was worth reading. So, there's some movie people who are after us for it now, which would be good because then we could release more issues of the comic, which would be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Did you go through like a Kickstarter to get that initial issue out, or how did you get that first thing going?
No, we had some very generous people who believe in our artistic vision, who ponied up some investment money, and so they're part of the team too. Yeah,
awesome. Have you thought about, if the movie thing doesn't happen, to do a Kickstarter? I only bring it up because we've interviewed a lot of very successful Kickstarter people getting their comics and getting their creative ideas out there just into the world, and letting people just kind of crowdfund this artistic endeavor, whatever it is.
I certainly think we have the materials for a Kickstarter, and that's something that we would certainly be happy to do because I think the first run of this sold about 2,000 issues.
Oh, easy.
And, and then the second, if we can get a second and third run going, 2,500, they're all, each of them are going to be 96 pages, before you know it, we'll have a good 6-issue compendium and maybe we'll have made some of our money back, which is always nice.
For sure. Yeah.
And entertain some people in the process. The messages of the reconcilers are deep and wide. History doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. And sometimes you can talk about right now while you're talking about the future, which is the coolest thing about science fiction, I think.
Yeah, that's a cool concept, and I agree with it. That's pretty dope.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite action movies of all time is Striking Distance. I know IMDb can be incorrect, but were you really in Striking Distance?
I was in Striking Distance, yeah. It was one of my first movie roles in Pittsburgh. I was the kid on the stairs that Bruce Willis sneaks onto the ship with his hat, and he without a hat, and then he trips me down some stairs, and he tells me to close my eyes, and I go, what? And he says, just close them, and he knocks me out, and he steals my hat, and all of a sudden he's got a hat, and he's on the ship. So I got to do my own stunts. I got to hit my head on some like hard metal, like 3 or 4 or 5 times in a row, which was an education in filmmaking. And I got to work with Bruce, who was pretty fun. He was a good dude. He's having a rough road of it now. So my memories of him are fond. But yeah, that was one of my first gigs. I had another gig with Tony Danza in a movie that Sam Jackson was also in. Where Sam's character died early in the movie, but I got to meet him before he was, Sam Jackson. And he convinced me that New York would be a good move for me when I graduated college. I was just at Carnegie Mellon, and I was trying to make money to put my tuition together. And this casting director named Donna Belijack took pity on me, and she called me in for every single thing that she cast. And my very first director was Night of the Living Dead director George Romero. There was a sequel, not a sequel, but a kind of remake that Tom Savini, the special effects guy, was doing. And I didn't quite make it into that as a lead, but George Romero said to me, next movie, I'm giving you a line in the movie. I'm going to give you a scene in the movie. And I was like, I kind of walked away going, oh yeah, well that and a quarter get me a cup of coffee. And he did it. He called me up and he said, I wrote something for you in the movie. And, it's in a Timothy Hutton movie called, it's based on a Stephen King novel where he's got two personalities, and I can't remember what it's called anymore.
Dark Half.
The Dark Half, that's right. And I got to be a student who was overexcited in class, and I think I had one word, and I said it, and everybody was happy, made it into the movie, and that was the beginning of an auspicious film career.
I mean, Tony Danza, Stephen King, Tim, like that's a great starting people to work with.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you learn a little bit from everybody. I did a pilot. I did a TV pilot, 5 or 7 years into my career with Walter Hill, who directed The Warriors. I played a major character in that. And that was a lot of fun. And I'm really sorry that series didn't see the light of day because Walter Hill would have directed a bunch of those episodes. And he's a legend, he's responsible for some of the Alien franchise and stuff like that. So every day at lunch, it was war stories about these amazing movies that he created, and you get to be around guys like that a lot. You learn stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I just like hearing that George A. Romero just stuck to his word. Even if it was just one word, it's still pretty cool that he's just hey, I told you I was going to do something and I did it.
He was a man of his word. He also played with a yo-yo on set, which is something I'm going to steal for a movie sometime. But him and his wife were very kind to me.
That's awesome.
I know you've done a lot of TV roles, one-offs and so forth. Do you ever see a show on television that maybe you enjoy and I kind of want to get a part on there?
Oh yeah. What's the border? Is it called Borderlands? What's the one with the Fallout? Yeah. I really would love to do that. I have not dipped my toe into post-apocalyptic worlds yet. Some dissolute scientist who doesn't believe in humans anymore would probably suit me. Some kind of a weird doctor or scientist or cloner or something like that. If they ever make Blade Runner into a TV series, I'd like to do that too.
What if you came back and followed as Edward Stevens, the Doctor?
Yeah. Oh, that sounds nice too. That'd be fun. Yeah, sure. I don't mind that at all. Yeah. No, that'd be fun to come back as him. The Walking Dead is an interesting universe. You're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. I got a lot of good friends on that show. It would just be nice to play with everybody again.
Yeah. How was Mr. Robot? It's such a iconic show too.
Well, Sam Ismail is an auteur and a genius. I do not understand how succinct his mind is. He had the whole thing planned out in his head from the start, and I knew one of his writers who was on staff, who I'm very good friends with, and I know Sam a little bit. And that whole cast I really adored, and to have spent some time in a sort of cold future that's a lot like the one we're living in right now was a prescient thing. It's kind of cool to be in things that predict the future sometimes, and it was my opportunity to kind of live in and also take down those guys who yell at the television to upset people all the time, being the conspiracy theorist, sort of pusher of lies, and then here, buy my new vitamins, with that whole connection was very interesting for me. It's an interesting square to circle, as they say.
Mr. Robot, man, I'm so glad that it brought Christian Slater back, but I remember watching Rami Malek on a Michael Rappaport show called War at Home, and then 24, and then to watch that show and then see him later in Bohemian Rhapsody. What was it like working with him and Christian Slater specifically?
Well, Christian and I had done a movie many years previously called The Tears of Julian Poe. It was an independent film that we shot in upstate New York somewhere. We had a scene in a bar where I talked about frog spearing. hunting frogs and frog
Yeah.
spear. And I walked him through this whole weird story about frog spearing as he drank a beer with us, trying to connect with the locals. And it was pretty funny. And they kept most of it in the movie. It was really nice. But it's called The Tears of Julian Poe. So that was a formative experience for me as an indie film kid. You know, that ended up doing a bunch of film festivals. Might have gone to Sundance. So that was kind of cool. So this was my second time working with him. I don't think I had any scenes with him, but I ran into him a few times and reminded him where we'd first met, and he remembered me, and I remembered his baby dogs that he brought to set that day, which he still had. So that was pretty cool. You know, like you do this long enough, you know, you realize everybody's one of you, you know. His mom was a casting director. I'd been friends with his mom and worked for his mom for many years. You know, people are flawed and people make their mistakes and stuff like that. But you come around this business long enough, the ones of us who stick around are pretty good people, you know?
Yeah.
I believe that. I like to believe that.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So one of my current favorite shows is Doc. I gotta hear about it. Because my co-host on my TV podcast, Jamie, she'd be upset if I didn't ask what the show was like.
Yeah, no. Well, another good friend of mine, Hank Steinberg, is the showrunner of that show. I was on a series of his previously on, I don't want to get the network wrong, on CBS called For Life with Nicholas Pinnock and a couple of other wonderful actors. And so I'd been on a show with him for 2 years. And so when Doc happened, he came up and he said, "Hey, I got this part for you of a guy who's you know, a little bit OCD, and he's a little bit nervous that he's got maybe he's a hypochondriac too." And I was like, "Well, I can do that." I mean, you know, that's kind of me in a nutshell. So I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll come up and do that." And so I went up to Canada, and they wrote a great script. We did a table read, and you know, within a day, we were all playing together again. It was fun. My friend Omar Matwali is on the show. He plays the husband from before that, and she doesn't know that they got divorced. You know, that guy, he's a beautiful, handsome guy with a beard. So Omar and I are old friends too. So it was an opportunity to like go up, make a little television, and then get dinner afterwards. So
that's a good show too.
Yeah. At the end of the day, for stuff like this, being in this business, at the end of the day, it's about the people you keep around you, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
I did want to talk to you about Brooklyn, Minnesota. What was it like working with, I believe her, right? Your daughter? That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we had this before I got my cancer diagnosis and then was cured. We had this idea with our friends. COVID had just ended, and I'd had a man, my higher powers like tried to kill me a couple times. I had a brain aneurysm weirdly come up out of nowhere one time before COVID, and then we were doing a play with Steve Earle at our theater, and then that had to shut down because of COVID, and so. So yeah, COVID bad. And then Dad got sick twice. And we decided that with my daughter that it would be a good idea to travel the world a little bit and go to France and then possibly Italy. And our friends happened to have a place in Italy near Lake Como, where George Clooney lives along the lake. He's not a close neighbor, but we could see where his boat was. You know, and we hung out at Lake Como for a week. And as we were there, all of us realized we'd had a connection to Minnesota. All of us realized that we really wanted to make a film. It was high time that we make something. One of my friends, Sean, was a writer who hadn't written screenplays before, but he directed documentaries. And my wife and I, of course, have created a lot of theater and a couple of films, but we were itching to make a film again too. And so these conversations started. We started talking about Minneapolis and about like how we all had connections to Minneapolis, and Han knew a film crew out there, and these like light conversations turned into more serious conversations. And then Han and I took a hike up the mountains overlooking Lake Como. And it was kind of a treacherous pitch session, but we started pitching each other ideas about what the movie could be like. And we decided, dysfunctional Midwestern family, son who is estranged from the family, leaves the family, goes to Brooklyn, meets the love of his life, and they have a daughter together. They build a life there together. And then the wife dies of cancer of a car crash. And so the dad and the daughter, she grows up with just a dad, and they sort of live in this bubble alone. And the dad has told his daughter that both the grandfather and the grandmother died, and it's just the two of them. And the daughter buys into that. And then one day a phone call comes in, and turns out the dad, my father, the grandfather, actually died. And so I have to break that news to my daughter, who's only 14, and she's pissed off at me. So we take a road trip from Brooklyn to Minnesota to get back in touch with the family and for her to come of age. It's a coming of age story about families coming back together, but it's really, really funny. So, so we made it on a shoestring it's a SAG low budget agreement. Out in Minnesota, we got our waiver right before the strike went underway. So we got in just under the wire with some help from the Screen Actors Guild. And we paid everybody a relatively good wage, the best wage we could. And everybody felt fairly treated. And we treated people with respect and came in every day with the idea of it's not whether it's your idea or my idea. It's whether or not it's effective. So what the answer we're looking for isn't about ego. It's about effectiveness. Does the answer work? Because, films are just all about solving problems and coming up with answers for questions. Yeah, and so, it was a sublime experience. Minnesota Nice is a real thing once you get underneath it. And everybody just wanted to work hard and be there every day. We went over overtime by an hour once. We didn't violate anybody's overtime. Nobody got hurt. Everybody was happy, and we made a pretty damn good film. And then, like, getting home with it and stuff like that, I was getting chemotherapy, but I was able to roll downstairs after my chemo session every day and come into the office where my wonderful editor Gordon Grinberg had set up his machine. And I was able to, help edit, sit in a chair with a blanket over me and help edit while I was feeling like crap. And, it changed the way I edited. I edited from the heart. I mean, getting sick in a lot of ways was kind of the greatest gift that the universe could have given me. It changed who I was as a filmmaker. And the opportunity to act with Amy Madigan from Weapons and to see her and my daughter cross paths. They play grandmother and granddaughter on the screen together. And to watch them cross swords and really have dramatic scenes together that are totally believable and really interesting. And then to have them call cut and Amy, lean into my daughter Sadie and say, hey, if you hit the mark this way from this angle, you're going to get a better angle on your face. Or if you come in this way really hard, and just come short of the mark, then you can step forward later in the scene and they'll move with you. The camera will move with you. And she's like, let the camera find you. Like all this great acting advice. She was training my daughter to be a non-camera actor from one of the greatest who's ever done it. So that was a big asset.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sure. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Is Brooklyn, Minnesota out already?
No, we just finished our last film festival, which we won the audience award for, the Soho International Film Festival. We won the audience award. So that was our last award that happened just about a month and a half ago. And we are in talks with 3 different entities about distribution, and we'll see how that goes. That'll be coming up probably within the next few months of the new year.
I wanted to ask you about those film festivals. Has it been fun to travel with the movie and kind of go?
Yeah, totally. Especially seeing it in Minneapolis. When I saw it in Minneapolis, there were all these little details I had to make sure that were right as a former Minnesotan. Like the card game they're playing is not bridge, it's cribbage. You play cribbage in the Midwest. And there had to be a You Betcha t-shirt in there. And let's see, what else? There are certain root beers that we got funding from to have their root beer in the movie that are Minnesota born and raised. That was very important. That's cool. And it's the small details. It's the family pictures on the wall. It's the piano in the corner. It's the way people are with each other at cookouts. It's very different than the way people are at cookouts in Brooklyn.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
You know, you got to get the Jell-O just right. Midwestern Jell-O, there's nothing like it. If the shake is off, people can tell. It's a tell, you know.
True.
It's a sign that you didn't do your research, you know. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
So what do you got coming up, Erik?
Oh, coming up. Well, we just got made writers in residence at the Public Theater here in New York.
Nice.
And I got another science fiction idea in me to write as a movie. And then we got a movie coming up with, I'm going to say with Jason Alexander starring in it and a couple of other really cool people that are sort of international superstars, but I can't tell you their names yet. And that's a comedy that we're going to shoot here in New York. It's all one location. It's a murder mystery. So it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of action, physical comedy, a lot like Clue. I don't know if you guys remember the movie Clue, but I like that movie.
Oh, very much. Yeah.
So good.
And then Ed Burns from The Wire and my wife and I are creating a TV show together set in 1933 Germany.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, you know, like, yeah. And it's cool. I just got back from Berlin and did all the research and everything like that. And we had a conference and went through all the research and we were onto something pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, as soon as that comes out, I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, please. That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
I got one more question. So you write, direct, act. Do you have a favorite that you like to do, or is it just a little bit of everything?
Oh, you know, at the end of the day, I really love coming home and reading my comic books and listening to, like, you know, Grateful Dead records. But, you know, and I like playing music with my friends. But in terms of the things that I do professionally, lately, I've really liked the writing because I'm writing for my friends now. I'm making work for them in a world where work is a little more hard to come by than it used to be. And so I find that very satisfying, knowing exactly who I'm going to cast in a thing, whether it's a micro budget film or a $500,000 film or a $5 million film. I know that I'm going to be of some service to the rest of my artistic community and we'll have a chance to make beautiful things together, you know.
That's awesome. Everybody, I will have the links to Erik's comic book shops down below. Justin, did you have anything else?
No, just thanks for being here, man. It's good talking.
You guys are really great. I'm so glad to be on your show. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Have a great night, everybody.
All right, peace. Take good care.